Hey guys, and welcome back to the IroncladLion channel. I've been so excited to make this video because I finally get to show you the beauty of the Shieldmaidens. The crown jewel of Season 7, Shieldmaidens are an incredible hybrid unit, possessing shields, spears, and swords. The Shieldmaidens weren't well received by the Conqueror's Blade community upon initial release, but I think they were misunderstood, as I've been absolutely loving them, and they're one of my favorite units to take into battle. Shieldmaidens were designed as a guardian unit, and have several supporting abilities that can turn the tide of battle for your team. Understanding these abilities is what will let us use the Shieldmaidens to their full potential. Shieldmaidens are a 5-star legendary unit, and are indeed befitting of that rank. Most legendary units currently in the game are highly specialized, excelling at a specific role or possessing a unique weapon that separates them from other units. Shieldmaidens are quite the opposite, possessing familiar weaponry, but using sword, spear, and shield together to handle any situation. In this ultimate Shieldmaiden guide, we'll be taking a look at the Shieldmaiden attributes, doctrines, veterancy lines, abilities, training yard demonstrations, and some live examples in the field. Let's get started. Looking at the base Shieldmaiden attributes, we can see they are well-rounded, with good attack values, 28 troops to a squad, and solid attack and defense stats. Their first formation is block, which is a rather dense default formation. Second is line formation, which is great for protecting your team from projectiles. Third formation is Sheltron, which has the Shieldmaidens form a very tight ring around you, great for protecting your hero or defending from multiple angles. Under unit traits, the Shieldmaidens are staunch defenders, describing how they are excellent in defense and damage taken is reduced. Next, we can see they have 2 weapons. Each weapon not only functions differently, but will actually change the Shieldmaiden stats depending on what they're holding. Wielding spears and shields will improve defense and blocking, while wielding swords improves their attack capabilities. They will also maintain formation while switching weapons, which we'll demonstrate later. With Stand Firm, Shieldmaidens take less damage from cavalry charges while they're holding spears. Stand Firm has been buffed since the unit release, and now the Shieldmaidens will no longer be knocked down by enemy cavalry charges while holding spears, as long as they are facing the right way, of course. Shieldmaidens are one of the Northlander units, along with Sons of Fenrir and Berserkers, and like many other legendary units, they are also fire resistant. As for abilities, while wielding swords, Shieldmaidens can use Freya's Charge. This is a very powerful charge that will hit multiple times, and also give a damage buff called Hearten to nearby allies. The other sword ability is Triple Strike, which has the Shieldmaidens hit 3 times with their shields to batter their opponents and reduce enemies' armor penetration for a short amount of time. The third hit of this ability does double damage. When wielding spears, Shieldmaidens have access to Cover Commander, which will have the unit follow your hero and attack nearby enemy units. This ability was buffed to give the Shieldmaidens better responsiveness, and is one of the core abilities of the Maidens. Finally, we have Guardian, which puts the Maidens into a tight 3-layer shield wall formation, and boosts the defenses of nearby allies. Shieldmaiden doctrines, and how to treat the girls right. This channel isn't for dating advice, but when picking out Shieldmaiden doctrines, the answer is quite simple.
What do you get for the girl who has everything more?
Despite being a hybrid, Shieldmaidens are classified as a spear unit, and so have access to spear doctrines. While missing out on sword doctrines, spear doctrines give very powerful defensive bonuses, and should absolutely be given to the maidens. Considering that I don't use any other spear units, the girls got the best of the best. Shieldmaidens get access to 2 unique purple doctrines and a blue doctrine, the first of which is the Guardian Doctrine, reducing the Guardian ability's cooldown by 5 seconds, an essential doctrine for keeping the maidens and your team alive. The second unique purple doctrine is the Attack Doctrine, reducing Freya's charge cooldown by 5 seconds. While this might seem situational, we absolutely want this doctrine as well for the buff that Freya's charge provides. On to the Spear Doctrines. I have the Epic Spear 2 Doctrine equipped, as the added block and boosted block recovery lets the maidens maintain a strong shield wall for extended engagements. The Epic Spear Doctrine 3, which I was very happy to acquire, boosts every defense value by 100. It goes without saying that this doctrine is amazing and makes the maidens very durable. Finally, we have the Epic Spear Doctrine 5, which could potentially be switched out for something else, but the heal that it gives can be quite quite helpful for when you can't make it back to a supply point. The blue doctrine that we removed earlier boosts each defense value by 50. While this doctrine is still strong, it's only half as strong as the specific spear doctrine. This blue shield doctrine can also be given to any unit, so we'll put it aside for use somewhere else. As for alternatives, you can use a spear health doctrine if you don't have the heal, or if you wanted to boost damage, you can give the maidens a damage doctrine for your preferred weapon of choice. Which brings us to our next topic, Veterancy Lines. The top maiden Veterancy line favors the spear, and defensive boosts to the maidens. The bottom line favors the sword and offensive boosts. I have the top line selected, which we'll talk more about soon. Looking at each level of the line, the top line starts with a 3% movement speed buff, which is always appreciated. Toughen Up increases piercing defense by 9% total, which is quite valuable as piercing defense is the Shieldmaiden's weakest defense attribute. Stand Fast increases blocking by 120 total, helping the maidens hold the front line and maintain formation. The First Second Wind is one of the standout levels of the top line, reducing Guardian's cooldown by 6 seconds total. Combined with the doctrine, that takes 11 seconds off the cooldown of the ability. This is not only great for the maidens, but also for your team. Soldier's Life increases health by 9%, and this is shared between the lines. Cold Blood boosts piercing damage by 9%, which is a nice little buff to damage. Another Move as One increases block recovery by 60%, which really helps the maidens in extended engagements. Bloodbath increases slashing defense by 9%, and another level of Second Wind reduces Freya's charge by 4 seconds. Combined with the Doctrine, this will reduce the charge cooldown by 9 seconds, which is awesome. The final level is Face Hardened, which increases blunt armor penetration by 30% while wielding spears. This is very useful for both defense and offense, which we'll demonstrate later. Oh, and you probably wanted to see the max level stats. Behold! The bottom line starts with Unswerving, increasing blunt defense by 9%. Blunt is actually the strongest maiden defense attribute, which makes them a good counter to blunt damage units. Razor Sharp increases slashing damage by 9% total, which makes the maiden swords far more deadly. Breakthrough increases Triple Strike's block break by 30% total, which greatly boosts the effectiveness of the maidens against enemy shield units. The first tier of Second Wind on the bottom line reduces the cooldown of Freya's charge by 6 seconds. This is like the cooldown from the top line, but favoring the charge over Guardian. Own increases armor penetration by 9%. Move as One boosts movement speed by 3%, which is shared with the top line, as is Soldier's Life. What does differ is that the second tier of Second Wind reduces Triple Strike's cooldown by 4 seconds. Since Triple Strike has a rather long cooldown, the 4 seconds comes in handy. Doubling up on Razor Sharp increases slashing damage by another 9%, but even that isn't sharp enough. With the third tier of Razor Sharp and the final level of the bottom line, increasing slashing and piercing armor penetration by 30% while wielding swords. Something to note is that at level 30, there are 4 points of overflow from either line. By taking the top line, you still get access to Unswerving. By taking the bottom line, you still get access to Move as One, which boosts the maiden's speed up to 5.5. So now is the part where you think, why? Why go top line? Why not bottom line? Why do you do the things you do, Ironclad? Which veterancy line is best? I don't always use the unit training plan, but when I do, I prefer DOS veterancy lines. I played my first 100 Shieldmaiden games with the bottom veterancy line. I liked the additional movement speed it gave them, and the damage potential with swords out. I was able to chop down enemy units, and switch to point guard when necessary. Using the top line now, I'm buffing my team, maintaining a strong shield wall, and going on brief offensives when an opportunity arises. If you wanted to maximize ability cooldowns, you could even split your points between both lines to get 3 of the Second Wind tiers, with 9 points on the top line and 19 on the bottom line. This would take 6 seconds off Guardian, 6 seconds off Freya's charge, and 2 seconds off Triple Strike. I haven't tried this myself, but it is an option if you're an absolute mad lad. I happen to prefer the top line for the defensive bonuses and the blunt damage penetration bonus, which comes in very handy while using Cover Commander. I might not get as many unit kills compared to when I was using the bottom line, but I'm also winning more matches. I'm pretty sure this has to do with being able to use Guardian more and the great improvement to survivability it gives the maidens. In the end, it comes down to playstyle, as both lines are solid choices. To summarize, both lines are viable, even a mixed distribution. Top line is defensive, bottom line is offensive, and split is support with ability cooldowns. Of course, We can be spreadsheet warriors all day, but maidens only shine when used properly, so let's hit the training yard. A quick overview of the Shieldmaiden formations. First, we have block, their default formation, which we won't be using very often. Next is line, where they form a wide, 2-layer line that covers a wide area. This is great for protecting your team's units from projectiles and stopping lower tier units from passing. Third formation is Chiltron, forming a tight, 2-layer ring around your hero. Great for healing while on the front line, guarding from multiple angles, or setting up for Freya's charge. By using Guardian, the maidens can actually form a 4th formation shield wall. This shield wall has 3 layers and is very compact, ideal for holding choke points and protecting from dense projectile rain. As you can see, this wall leaves almost no openings for projectiles to get through. Be cautioned, as this formation is incredibly vulnerable to enemy siege equipment. Since this formation can only be formed when using the Guardian ability, we'll have to choose wisely when to use it in combat, more on that later. While not exactly an official formation, the Cover Commander ability puts the maidens into a double-layered ring formation around your hero. As you move around, these rings will move with you, protecting you at all times. Shield maidens are classified as a spear unit, but don't have the same shaped shields as other spear units. Maidens have large, round shields, which do cover a good amount of area, but can also leave small holes in their walls. Let's test the formations against an archer unit to see how effective each one is. In block formation, shield maidens will block incoming arrows, but they will do so on an individual basis. Without overlapping shields, it's much more likely for the maidens to get hit. Putting the shield maidens into a line formation, the double layer does an excellent job of blocking incoming arrows over a wide area. A few arrows may still get through the small holes between shields, but overall quite effective. The Chiltron formation is nice for defending from multiple angles, but it leaves significantly bigger gaps between the shields, making it not as effective against sustained fire. By using Guardian, the shield maidens will put up their 3-layer shield wall. This takes an extra second to set up, but is the most effective formation for stopping enemy projectiles. Finally, we have Cover Commander, which functions similarly to the block formation in regards to projectiles. Each shield main will do their best to protect themselves from arrows, but it is overall much less effective than a shield wall formation. Cover Commander, as we'll see, is much better suited to deal with enemy melee units. Let's get into the Shieldmaiden abilities. Displayed by the large blue circle on the ground, Guardian will give the Blessed buff, which raises the defense of all surrounding friendly units and heroes the moment the shield wall is formed. This buff lasts for 10 seconds and boosts all defenses by 250 for the duration. By default, the shield maidens will use the spear when forming the wall. The spear is ideal for defense, as it has a longer reach and will push enemies away a significant amount. Combined with the shield bashes, a shield maiden unit can prevent enemy units from dealing damage by constantly pushing them back, and blocking incoming damage with their own shields. While using spears isn't the highest damage option, it's a very safe option that will keep you and your maidens alive. Don't worry, I'm going to show you what the same engagement looks like with swords. After forming the Guardian shield wall, you can press 3 to give the switch weapon command. It takes about half a second to switch, but notice how the maidens stay in formation. Swords do more damage than spears, but they also have a shorter reach, and don't push the enemy back as far. It may be the higher damage option, but engaging the enemy at a shorter distance can be dangerous. Switching weapons has a 7-second cooldown, so choose wisely what weapon you want to use for a specific fight. Some of you may have noticed that the shield maidens are smarter than your average Grug unit, and have what I call adaptive defense. Let's say you accidentally placed your Guardian formation backwards. The maidens will do their best to make up for your mistake and turn to engage enemies, no matter which direction they may come from. It'll still take them a few moments to turn around, so they won't be as effective as if they were facing the right way. Let's put them into their line formation to test this as well. As you can see, even in line formation, the maidens will turn to engage enemies that come from other angles. This is nice, but will make it hard to defend against projectiles if they're constantly having to turn. To summarize, maidens are smart, you should be too. So Guardian placement, not quite the same as using a normal formation. While placing Guardian, there's a small ring that will be formed in the center of the unit. The larger ring shows the Guardian buff area, while the arrows show the unit placement. The shield wall placement will pivot around the central point of the unit's current position. To change the angle of the wall, you can use the A and D keys. This new facing will also pivot using your input. While this may seem simple, it's important to understand this mechanic, as on the battlefield, you may not be able to see the arrows on the ground. If you wanted to use Guardian, but also move the unit back, you'll have to use A and D to first rotate the facing, and then place Guardian behind the current formation. Failure to do so may cause you to place Guardian backwards. I've done this before, and the maidens were rather upset about it. Just like my wife. A quick example, I'll order the maidens to use Guardian, but to face the archers, I need to use A and D to adjust the placement, as it's not relative to your hero, but to the Shieldmaiden unit. Also notice the timing of the Guardian Blessed buff. It triggers for the maidens as soon as they enter the ring, but doesn't activate for allies until the maidens are in place, at which point you will see the golden glow. Keep this in mind when trying to buff your teammates. As mentioned before, the Guardian formation is excellent for holding choke points. If enemies try to push past, they will be knocked back and damaged by the maiden shield wall. Maidens are quite strong on their own in this role, but should be combined with a pike or musket unit to maximize their group effectiveness. The heal doctrine is also very useful, as it lets the maidens hold the front line for extended periods without needing to head back to resupply. Not a required doctrine by any means, but worth demonstrating so you can see it for yourself. Cover Commander. The combination of an attack and follow order in ability form. Cover Commander has the shield maidens follow your hero very closely and engage any enemies within a short distance. This is a great ability, as it allows you to focus on fighting with your hero rather than micromanaging the maidens. To get the maidens to fight, all you need to do is be close to an enemy, and the maidens will come rushing to defend you. This ability was buffed to make the maidens more responsive, and now the maidens will attack without delay and very effectively. This is much more effective than giving the maidens a follow order, and so we'll be using this ability anytime we are traveling across the map with the maidens. To make sure the mechanics of this ability are well understood, we'll demonstrate the ability while moving very little. The maidens will form their default 2-layer ring around your hero, but you will notice the maidens are very protective of their senpai. As soon as the enemy gets too close, it triggers every maiden. The engagement distance is not determined by where the maiden is standing relative to the enemy, but purely by your hero's location. If the enemy is too far from your hero, the maidens will prioritize following you over engaging. Remember how I said that Cover Commander was more effective than giving the follow order? Let's see why that is. If moving the maidens with a formation order, we can see they move at their default pace. By using Cover Commander, the maidens will sprint at max speed to your location and stick to you like you have a ring in your pocket. Cover Commander is exclusive to the spear and cannot be used while the sword is equipped. While fighting, the maidens will stab with their spears, bash with their shields, and knock enemies back. This makes Cover Commander especially effective when protecting allied units, as it can prevent a lot of potential damage with its natural crowd control effects. A small downside to Cover Commander, however, is if enemy units are too far away from your hero, but still within range to attack. If we rewind the last clip, we can see a few units are not being engaged by the maidens due to their distance from where I'm standing. Maidens will prioritize protecting you, and you may lose a few maidens this way if you are not paying attention. In larger battles, position yourself accordingly so this doesn't happen. Draw swords and get ready for Freya's charge. With swords out, shield maidens can use Freya's charge to both buff themselves, teammates, as well as deal an impressive amount of damage to clustered enemy troops and heroes alike. Freya's charge has great distance and the ability to hit multiple times. Instead of stopping on the first enemy hit, each maiden will continue charging forward and continue hitting with their shields. This charge actually functions much like a cavalry charge, as each maiden will trample several enemy units before coming to a complete stop. If using spears, Freya's charge can be queued while the maidens are pulling out their swords. They will still have to complete the animation, so timing is key. The maidens will yell, signaling the charge and buffing surrounding teammates with Hearten. The Hearten buff lasts for 10 seconds and boosts damage by an impactful 20%. The buff timer starts as soon as the maidens yell, so charging from a far distance is not encouraged if you want to maximize your damage. I'd also recommend clustering your maidens into a ring using Cover Commander or the Shieldmaiden formation before using Freya's charge. This will concentrate the ability, letting you punch through even the toughest formations. You could use a line formation to wipe a weaker unit, but it often leaves the maidens fragmented after the charge. An important note, each time a maiden hits a target with their shields, it slows them down and reduces the length of their charge. Therefore, some maidens will end their charge early after they have hit several times, while others may keep charging the full duration if they never made contact. You will need to make the call yourself about when to call off the charge to make sure the unit stays together, but also not too soon, as you want to deal as much damage as you can. Freya's charge will often leave your unit of maidens behind an enemy unit, which has great potential to dismantle an enemy formation, but also is dangerous as you don't want to become separated from your team. The Shieldmaiden's final ability is Triple Strike, in which the maidens will strike 3 times with their shields, battering opponents, reducing their block, and reducing their armor penetration temporarily. The third hit also does double damage. While this ability can be used on its own, it should be considered a companion ability to Freya's charge. Using it directly after the charge will harness the power of the Heartened buff, making Triple Strike 20% stronger. One last tip about the Shieldmaiden abilities and buff. If you were planning on being a mad lad and trying to overlap both the Blessed and Heartened buff at the same time, you cannot. You may only have one buff at a time, and a new buff will override the other. Plan accordingly so you can maximize the usage of both. Now I hope you're ready for everyone's favorite section, Battlefield Examples. Before we jump in, I have clips using the bottom Veterancy line and the top Veterancy line. If I'm wearing this outfit, I'm using the bottom Veterancy line. If I'm wearing the Blood Odin set, I'm using the top line. If I'm wearing the blue Odin set, I'll have displayed which vet line I was using in each clip. Ironclad Maidens, let's go! First example has us assaulting Great Wall. Our team is pushing the A point, and we want to support them as much as possible. First thing we do is get a Guardian Wall up past the side entrance. This gives our units pushing in the Blessed buff, and also establishes a protected entry point so more troops can move in. I spend a few seconds looking at the ongoing battle to get an idea of how we want to hit the cluster of enemies in the corner. I get the maidens into Shiltron formation to protect from all sides, and get them clustered for Freya's charge. Seeing our opening, I give the order for Freya's charge, and head for the far corner. On the way, we trample an enemy glaive hero and several enemy stalwarts. Once in the corner, I activate Triple Strike to clear out any units that may have survived the charge. Now that we are behind the enemy front line, we'll hunker down by switching back to spears, and setting up a Guardian Wall. This has now cut off enemy units from retreating. Several enemy heroes will try to stop us, but with the Guardian buff active, they have almost no effect on the maidens. We then switch to cover commander to clean up the enemy heroes that remain. With a few enemy projectiles raining down on us, we'll get the maidens into a wide shield wall to cover our team. Only one maiden lost, and A point is taken. Defending on Valley Fortress, we've moved our maidens around to the side gate to help clear out a potential flank. What I'd like to highlight in this clip is the utility of Triple Strike. While not a very damaging ability, many people forget that Triple Strike reduces enemies' armor penetration, while Freya's charge over the enemy hero and into the Imperial Pike Guard. Just before he got trampled, the enemy hero managed to order the walk. With even a few hits from Triple Strike, however, we're able to reduce the enemy's armor penetration enough that we don't take any Shieldmaiden losses from the pikes. Once to elite status, Shieldmaidens are a very durable unit, and can actually survive many abilities such as an Imperial Pike walk. With the enemy pike unit wiped, we'll send our maidens back to heal. Even if the bottom Veterancy line is better suited for offense, always remember that Shieldmaidens are a spear unit, and are meant to be the guardians of your team. While not even to elite status at the time of this clip, we'll use the strength of the bottom line to help us in this situation. While originally planning to guard the objective, I noticed a sizable enemy force approaching our flank. Instead of using Guardian, we opted for a more offensive approach to crush the enemy units with a well-placed Freya's charge. Using Freya's charge from this location will buff our muskets and make it harder for the enemy to see the charge coming. I locked down the enemy maul before he could try anything cheeky, and the maidens trampled most of the enemy advance. A follow-up Triple Strike batters the surviving berserkers into submission, and the enemy flanking attempt retreats. Only a single Shieldmaiden and a few muskets lost. A job well done. I like my Shieldmaidens how I like my wife, flexible. So what kind of situations do Shieldmaidens struggle in? Anytime the Shieldmaidens have to engage enemies from multiple angles, they lose much of their effectiveness. We're on the wall at Hidden City, and have come from the west side of the wall where we had no contact. This is a great opportunity to hit the enemy team while they are distracted. We have an enemy javelin unit in front of us, and I order Freya's charge. This would have been a great charge, but those meddling wolves of Fenrir had to come and ruin my plan. These were especially troublesome as they jumped behind behind my maidens, creating a rather dire situation. For the time being, we had to switch back to a defensive posture and put away our swords. With spears out, we use Guardian and then cover Commander to raise our defenses while clearing out the Wolves of Fenrir. As soon as our backs are safe, we'll reform the line. Just as we're getting comfortable again, the enemy spear hero mounts on his horse and jumps our shield wall. I don't like having to break formation, but we use cover Commander to deal with the enemy hero promptly. Our team is able to take the wall and we can breathe again safely. We lost 8 maidens, so I'm not happy about the engagement, but I probably would have been better sticking with my team. If that was mediocre maiden gameplay, then what does ideal shield maiden domination look like? Here on Harbor City, we're pushing the supply point and so have established a wide shield wall for our team. This is to guard our team from projectiles and to give them the confidence to move up with us. Despite plenty of arrows and javelins being thrown, the shield maidens stand strong. Once the enemy team splits, we'll use Guardian to buff our team and concentrate the shield wall in the direction of the biggest threat. Our friendly paladins, reading our movements, begin to leapfrog closer to the enemy units. While we could have charged straight in, we're going to use the shield maiden's fast movement speed to do a quick flank around to the side of the enemy formations. This is where the bottom veterancy line can really shine. With the enemy units distracted by the paladins, we order Freya's charge into the enemy units. The enemy tries to reposition, but it's too late. The charge connects beautifully, and the follow-up triple breaks their formation completely. The heroes try to stop us, but the maidens are far too durable for longswords to deal with. With one longsword brought to justice, the other flees and we set up a defensive wall. No loss of maidens and the supply point secured. Dasuo Fort. Holding the choke point is no easy task, and the enemy team is desperate to push through. There may be javelins and plenty of units, but the strong Guardian wall can take a beating. By repeatedly pushing enemy units back, we create enough space that the enemy units can't deal damage to our wall, and our friendly muskets are able to deal an incredible amount of damage. An enemy short sword tries to break the wall, but even he does not have what it takes to stand up to the maidens. Our confidence surges and we're able to push back the enemy assault in the last few seconds. In a field battle on Stalemate Creek, we've decided that if we want to win, we need to hold B point, and while the maidens do quite well against enemy units, enemy heroes are what you want to watch out for. While the Guardian wall can continually push enemy melee units back, it has no effect on heroes. That's why with your hero, you should target the enemy hero first, and let the maidens deal with the units. Once the head of the snake has been cut off, the berserkers bounce off the shield wall like we're playing pinball, and have no effect on the maidens. Once they are given the order to retreat, we'll use cover Commander to quickly chase down and kill off the rest of the unit. Fast forward, and we spot an enemy short sword hero trying to be cheeky behind us. I thought he was running away, but he actually brought his Fort Brachio pikeman unit all the way to B point. I wasn't actually sure what his plan is, so I got the maidens into a Guardian shield wall and waited. Since he was the one that needed to capture B, I wasn't in any particular rush. Then, sure enough, he decided to move his pikes right up to the shield wall. This actually wasn't a problem unless I moved the maidens. So, without moving the maidens, we switched to swords and charge. Even though we couldn't get much momentum, we closed the gap, trample the hero, and the triple strike is enough to break the enemy formation. Only one maiden lost, and we held B point long enough to claim victory. Here on Riverlands Castle, we've got a squad of palace guards charging our position. We can't avoid it, so we're going to block it. Using Guardian before the palace guards make contact with us will give us enough defense to minimize damage. Once the wall is fully set up, the maidens begin pushing the guards back. The Maul hero wants to break the wall, but with the space created, I can easily target her and take her out of the fight. With the Maul separated from her unit, I can collapse on her with cover Commander and finish off the last few guards. That was fun, but we're not done yet. Using cover Commander to quickly and effectively move the maidens down the stairs, we line up for a juicy charge on some Nankans. With the quick movement, the enemy heroes don't respond fast enough, and we cut right through the center of the archer formation. Not a single maiden lost, and the enemy team is in shambles. Wall forward! We spot the Imperial Pike Guard walking and aim straight for the squad's center. Freya's charge connects perfectly, and with triple strike, we're able to wipe the unit. Seeing no more units nearby, I move towards the enemy heroes. A little trick to help eliminate enemy heroes is using the Shiltron formation before activating cover Commander. Otherwise, the maidens will attack from max range, but by using Shiltron, they'll surround the enemy hero as well as push away other hostile units. By doing so, the nasty Maul player has no chance to escape and must repent for their sins. This time, on defensive Harbor City, there is one last crucial point that will separate the good maiden commanders from the bad, and that is, you have to be patient. Use your shield wall and buff your team with Guardian until you have an opening. No other unit can perform both the assault and defense role as well as the maidens, and that's where you can hit the enemy where it hurts. Seeing our brave short sword hero tank several enemy heroes, we make our move. Freya's charge right to his location, where we trample all 3 enemy heroes. Then right after, an elite Iron Reaper charge, where we use triple strike to bash the Reapers and reduce their armor penetration. Having inspired our team, an IPG walk helps us clean up the last few Reapers. Despite the chaos, we only lose 2 maidens. Shield maidens are really something special. Mechanically complex, but not too difficult to use. Shield maidens are for the commander who wants to be able to take on any situation. Choosers of the slain, these Valkyries can protect your team and take the lives of your enemies. Like other shield units, watch out for cavalry, siege equipment, and stay with your team. Despite having the stand firm trait, it's still better to avoid an enemy cavalry charge than tank it. While having high damage potential, the shield maidens can only do so much by themselves. They are most effective when supporting other units, and are an excellent addition to any team. I've used them in every game mode, and plenty in Territory War to great effect. They are my highest win rate unit, and I look forward to using them more in Season 8. 3 weeks in the making and over 30 minutes long, this has been my most in-depth video I've ever created. If you liked this video, consider subscribing to help me grow. I've only just started playing Conqueror's Blade with Season 7, but the channel has been growing rapidly thanks to you all. This will be my last major video until Season 8 begins, and I'll be focusing on my Agolia Capital Defense series. Once Dynasty rolls over the horizon, I'm planning on covering the new seasonal units as well. Liking these videos and sharing them with others really helps, and I hope you enjoy the Shield Maidens as much as I do. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'm IroncladLion, and I'll see you in the next video.